The Clamoth Chronicle, October 15, 1958, Clamoth Falls, Oregon. A chilling encounter in the dense forests of Northern California has left a local logger convinced he came face to face with a creature straight out of legend. On the evening of October 6, 1958, near Bluff Creek, California, about 60 miles south of Klamath Falls, 34-year-old Gerald Crew claims he stumbled upon the infamous Bigfoot, a massive, hairy beast said to roam the Pacific Northwest wilderness. Crew, a seasoned logger with the Willow Creek Logging Company, was working late on a remote logging road in the Six Rivers National Forest when the incident occurred. According to his account provided to the Clamoth Chronicle on October 10, 1958, he was repairing a section of road damaged by recent rains when he noticed an eerie silence fall over the forest. The birds stopped chirping and it felt like the air got heavy, Crew recalled, his voice trembling. Around 7:30 p.m., as dusk settled over the rugged terrain, Crew spotted what he initially thought was a bear standing upright near a cluster of Douglas firs. The figure, illuminated faintly by his truck's headlights, stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in matted dark brown hair. It wasn't no bear, Crew said. It had arms long like a man's, but thicker, and its eyes, Lord, its eyes glowed red in the light, staring right at me. Frozen with fear, Crew watched as the creature let out a guttural, bone-chilling howl that echoed through the valley. He described the sound as like a scream and a growl mixed together, something no animal I know could make. The creature took several deliberate steps toward him, its massive feet leaving deep impressions in the muddy ground. Crew, clutching his shovel, scrambled back to his truck and locked himself inside. The beast, he claims, circled the vehicle slowly, its heavy breathing audible through the cracked window, before vanishing into the thick underbrush. The next morning, October 7, 1958, Crew returned to the site with 2 co-workers who confirmed seeing enormous footprints, measuring 16 inches long and 7 inches wide, pressed nearly an inch deep into the soil. The tracks, which Crew cast in plaster, have since drawn attention from locals and curiosity seekers alike. I ain't never going back to that spot alone, Crew vowed. Whatever that thing was, it wasn't human, and it wasn't friendly. Local authorities, including Humboldt County Sheriff Robert D. Larson, investigated the site on October 9, 1958, but found no additional evidence beyond the footprints. Sheriff Larson dismissed the sighting as a possible prank, noting that logging camps are known for tall tales. However, Crew insists the encounter was no hoax. I know what I saw, he said. That thing was real, and it's out there. The incident has reignited local legends about a creature the native Hoopa and Yurok tribes call Sasquatch or Oma, a towering ape-like being said to inhabit the forests of Northern California and Southern Oregon. Similar sightings have been reported in the region since the early 1900s, though none as detailed as Crew's account. Residents of Clamoth Falls and nearby Willow Creek are divided. Some, like local diner owner Mabel Thornton, believe Crew's story. "I've heard noises in those woods myself," Thornton said. "Something's out there, and it ain't just bears." Others, including logger Tom Willard, scoff at the tale. "Gerald's probably just spooked by shadows and too much coffee," Willard quipped. As word of the encounter spreads, hunters and thrill seekers have begun flocking to Bluff Creek, hoping to catch a glimpse of the elusive creature. Forest rangers, however, urge caution. "That area's dangerous enough without chasing monsters," said Ranger Daniel Holt of Six Rivers National Forest on October 12, 1958. "Stick to the trails and don't go looking for trouble." Crew, meanwhile, has taken a leave of absence from his logging job, claiming he can't sleep without nightmares of those glowing red eyes. "I don't care if folks believe me," he said. "I just want people to know it's out there, and it's watching." Whether a genuine monster or a trick of the mind, the Bluff Creek encounter has cemented Bigfoot's place in local lore, leaving residents to wonder what else might lurk in the shadows of the Klamath wilderness. The Clamoth Chronicle will continue to follow this story as new details emerge. Part 1. Dry Bones and Strange Prints. The lake was dying. The once full Patmaze Reservoir had receded 6 feet below its usual level, leaving cracked mudflats and exposed tree stumps that jutted up like broken teeth. Locals said it hadn't been this dry in decades. Game Warden Darla Barr, now in her 10th year patrolling Lamar County, chalked it up to the relentless Texas sun. But something else had come with the drought. People were whispering again about the wild man of Sanders Creek. First it was Mike Sells, a retired construction worker and self-declared Bigfoot enthusiast. He came by the ranger station in early June, his weathered face taut with excitement. "I found another one," he said, pulling out a photo on his phone. The image was grainy but unmistakable. A broad, five-toed footprint, easily 12 inches long, pressed deep into the mud along the shoreline. A crumpled water lily leaf sat curled in the arch like a signature. Darla had seen prints like that before. Too clean, too convenient. Hogs, or some barefoot kid, she muttered. But Mike wasn't convinced. This one was fresh. I could smell it. Musky, rank. It was watching me. "I know it was," he insisted. She sighed, handed him back the phone, and thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. Part 2. The expedition returns. 2 weeks later, Tom Biscardi came back. He wasn't alone. His crew, nightscope guys, infrared techs, even a freelance reporter, rolled in with four-wheelers, tents, and boxes of gear. They set up camp near the old Lamar Point boat ramp, where the cracked earth stretched out for half a mile toward the shrinking lake. The first night, they claimed to have seen movement in the trees. The second, they found footprints and piles of broken clamshells near a shallow inlet. "This is it. We're closer than ever," Biscardi declared. Java Bob posted a blog calling the area something out of Jurassic Park. The term caught on. Locals began referring to it as the Drowned Valley. Then a camper disappeared. Part 3. The Missing. Her name was Carrie Dalton, a college student from Dallas who'd come out to fish with friends. They found her gear the next morning, folded neatly near the reeds. No blood, no drag marks. Just one long, deep footprint in the mud, half submerged, leading away from the lake. Her phone was discovered 4 days later, face down in the muck. The last video was 32 seconds long. First the rustle of leaves, then a sudden gasp, then a low groan, not quite human, not quite animal. The screen spun, catching a flash of something dark, tall, and swaying. Then it went black. Mike Sells saw the video and turned pale. That sound. That's what I heard the night I found the print. By late July, 4 more folks had gone missing. A father and son out on a fishing trip. Then a group of night hikers and a hunter who left behind just his bow and a string of gutted fish. Each time, the only sign left behind was the same, a strange footprint. Sometimes there were 2, never more than that, always leading off into the woods. The dry shoreline had turned into a graveyard of whispers, I tell you. Darla, well, she wasn't skeptical anymore. She started walking the lakebed every morning. One time she found this whole patch of crushed lilies, like something enormous had laid itself down right there. Right in the middle was a jagged shell, bigger than her palm, busted clean in half. Then one night, while she was watching thermal drone footage, she saw something move, something massive and fast, just outside the edge of their lights. It didn't walk like any bear. Didn't move like a man either. It darted, then stopped. Watching. Always watching. In August, the lake dropped another 2 feet. Old stumps started poking out again, along with bits of lost fishing gear and even a rusted-out rowboat from the 60s. But, something else surfaced too. The body of Carrie Dalton. Or, well, what was left of her. She was half buried in the mud, face turned up to the sky, and her expression was just frozen in terror. Her fingernails were torn, arms all bruised up, but her feet, they were bare, and her ankles were broken, twisted inward, like she'd been dragged. The autopsy, it showed something even stranger. Bits of lily root in her stomach and freshwater mussel meat. She'd been eating like it. That's about when the dreams started. Darla, she'd wake up in a cold sweat, swearing she heard something calling her name from the reeds. A voice, deep and slow, muffled like it was underwater. Other rangers, they started hearing it too. Some of them just flat out refused to go back out. Mike Sells, he locked himself inside his trailer and stopped answering calls. The final expedition, Darla, Biscardi, Java Bob, and a local news team, set out under a full moon. They made their way to the deepest part of the lake bed where the mud had dried into these jagged plates. They found an old survey flag flapping in the wind, one they'd put there months ago, when the first footprint was found. But right beside it was a hole, a deep, narrow trench, like something had clawed its way out. The cameraman just screamed. His infrared picked up a silhouette, something standing still, too still at the edge of the trees. It didn't move, but it vibrated, you know? The outline shimmered like a heat haze, too tall, too wide, just too wrong. The footage ends with static. Only Darla made it back. She won't talk about what she saw. Epilog, September 2025. The lake has started to refill with those early rains, you know. Locals say the water is cloudy, filled with a thin green film that wasn't there before. Fish avoid the shallow end near Lamar Point. The game warden's office is closed indefinitely. The last entry in Darla Bar's logbook reads, "The clams weren't food. They were offerings. We're not alone. We never were." And at night, when the wind is low and the fog rolls in, some folks say they still hear it, that sound from the video. Long, low, a groan that just bubbles up from beneath the lake's black surface, followed by a whisper. The tragedy of Cottonwood Springs, based on the true legend of the Trans-Mountain Ghost, El Paso, Texas. Part 1. The Road Between Worlds. Before the highway, there was only the mountain. Long before pavement carved its way through the Franklin Range, the dusty pass near Cottonwood Springs was known to travelers by whispers alone. Horseback riders told of a robed figure standing in the rocks. Others said a black dog with burning eyes chased them from the canyon. Few turned back to look. Then came Trans-Mountain Road, a sleek black ribbon through the desert connecting El Paso to the western sprawl. For years it served without incident, until the swerves began. Drivers, mostly at night, claimed to see a man and a dog appear out of nowhere. Cars veered into guardrails, trucks jackknifed. One family of 4 vanished entirely, their SUV found idling on the shoulder, headlights on, no passengers. And always, the same description. A tall figure in flowing robes, a silent staring hound, no footprints, no trace. Part 2. The Legend Awakens. In 1971, a reporter named Ed Kimball wrote the first modern article on what locals had long feared, the Trans-Mountain Ghost. It traced back to a tale of 1800s Jesuit priests who ran a gold mine in the Franklin Mountains. As Apache raids loomed, most priests fled, except one. He remained behind with a massive black dog to guard the cave's secret. Neither were ever seen again. But the gold? Rumors say it was never found. And that's when the sightings began. In 1979, another reporter documented a boy who claimed the thing leapt at him from a boulder, mouth filled with teeth, its eyes glowing like coals. Now in 2025, people are seeing him again. Part 3. The Girl Who Ran. Maria Estrada was a high school senior headed to her night shift at a coffee chain off Highway 375. She knew the road well. Her old Civic clung to the curves like a cat. She was texting a friend when she looked up and slammed the brakes. A man in white robes stood in the middle of the road. Beside him, a massive black dog, eyes yellow as sulfur. She veered hard. Her car spun, crashed through a barrier, and flipped. She crawled out with a broken leg and a shattered phone. The man was gone. But the dog? It stood at the edge of the wreck, silently watching her bleed. Then it disappeared. Part 4. It wants the gold back. The story went viral. Everyone had a theory, hallucination, heat stroke, drugs. But others, quietly, came forward. A trucker who saw a robed figure walking on air over the guardrail. A biker who felt claws scratch across his helmet as he sped past Cottonwood Springs. Then a man named Luis Ortega came forward. A prospector, an amateur historian, and a descendant, he claimed, of one of the original priests. He told reporters the legend had been altered over time. It wasn't the gold he was guarding. It was something bound in that cave, something from deeper times. The priest and the dog didn't just stay. They were trapped there by ritual, by blood. The problem? The mine was recently rediscovered by hikers who posted a selfie online. 2 of those hikers are now missing. Part 5. Opened. Investigators found the cave near an old wash, hidden behind collapsed boulders. The entrance had been exposed by heavy rains. What they found inside disturbed even the skeptical. A narrow tunnel descending. Symbols carved into the stone, Latin, Apache, something else. A large chamber sealed with a rusted iron gate, and behind it, a mound of cloth and bones. Tied to the wall with ancient chains was what remained of the priest. Curled at his feet, the skeleton of a massive dog, but the bones were cracked, freshly, and something had been dragged out. Since the cave was opened, 5 people have vanished on Trans Mountain Road. One driver recorded dash cam footage before disappearing, a flash of white robes crossing the road. The footage ends as the figure turns to face the camera, its mouth far too wide, filled with jagged teeth. Folks around here, well, they've started calling that stretch the Mile of Silence. Locals leave offerings now, coins, crosses, sometimes even raw meat, right at the entrance to the old springs. Luis Ortega tried to seal the cave again, but he was found dead 2 days later. Scratched into the sandstone beside his body were these words: "He's looking for the gold. He's looking for the ones who disturbed it. He walks again. He will not stop." It's just after midnight. A couple is driving down Trans Mountain Road and the city lights shimmer below them. They're holding hands and the music is soft. The dog appears first, trotting into the road real slow, head hanging down. The couple hits the brakes. Then the man steps into their headlights. His robe is torn, his skin like wax. His mouth opens too far and he smiles. The woman screams. The car swerves. Folks will say it's just another accident. But if you ever drive that road, windows down, radio turned low, you might hear it. Not a bark, not a howl, but a man's voice whispering something you almost understand. Almost. It was October 11th, 1973, when Calvin Parker's life ended. Not his breathing, not his heartbeat, but, well, everything else. His privacy, his peace, his grip on what's real. That evening, Calvin and his friend Charles Hickson were fishing off an old pier on the Pascagoula River. The sun was gone, the air was still. They were about to pack up when a sudden buzzing, like electricity crackling underwater, shivered the air. They turned. The object hovered there, silent, metallic, lit with this pale blue light. 3 beings came out, crab-clawed and faceless. Calvin fainted. Charles screamed. They were taken. Inside, Calvin remembered these intense lights and some strange device scanning his body. Though he swore they didn't touch him, their minds, well, they reached his. Then it was over. They were back on the pier. Part 2, lies, laughs, and loneliness. The press ate it up, y'all. Aliens on the coast? Fishermen claim outer space kidnap. Crabs from the stars. Calvin never wanted fame, not even a little. He wasn't like Hickson, who gave talks and signed books. Calvin moved states, changed jobs, changed names, but the memory just clung to him. Sometimes at night, he heard the buzzing again. Sometimes he dreamed they were still watching. He told himself it was trauma, the mind protecting itself. But deep down, he always knew the truth. Part 3. October 11th, 2025. 52 years to the day. Calvin sat by the river again. Older, thinner, haunted. He didn't want to be there, but, well, something had pulled him back. A need to know if it was real. He recorded a podcast with a Mississippi host earlier that afternoon. Calvin Parker said, "They never left. They promised they'd come back." That night, he launched his boat alone into the dark Pascagoula water. By morning, the boat was drifting empty, and the tape erased. Part 4. The Tower in the Sky. Calvin's wife reported him missing. Police found the boat's GPS still recording. It showed the boat pausing in the middle of the river, then drifting uncontrolled. Drones searching the sky that night reported something strange. A thin, silent vertical beam hovering over the water. It rose high, seemingly infinite, like a black tower made of air. The next morning, the fish were gone. Every crab, every bird along the bank, as if something had taken them, you know? A local boy fishing nearby reported hearing a low hum and a deep voice inside his brain. He hasn't spoken since. 2 weeks later, a woman down in Florida, Calvin's sister, well, she got a flash drive in the mail. No return address, no markings, nothing at all to say where it came from. That drive, it held just one video file, only 1 minute and 19 seconds long. It showed Calvin Parker standing there in a blank white space. His clothes were all torn, his hair sticking up every which way. He looked up, not at the camera, but at something behind it. He spoke real slow. They wanted to understand what we were, what fear was, what trust was. They learned by watching me suffer. He paused, kind of shuddered, and they're learning faster now. Then the footage started to distort. Calvin's eyes rolled back. A mechanical voice echoed up underneath his own. Transmission complete. New subject queued. Your memory is a portal. Prepare. Then, well, just static. That same week, Charles Hickson's grandson got a phone call. The caller claimed to be Calvin. But Hickson, he'd passed on back in 2011. The voice said, "They figured out how to move without ships now. No lights, no sound, they're passing through." That night, Hickson's house filled up with water, not from the pipes, but from the air itself. It just condensed out of nowhere. His security footage didn't show a single intruder, just the hum and a tall shape flickering through the doorway, never quite touching the floor. The Pascagoula River is quiet now, too quiet if you ask around. Fishermen steer clear of it. The fish, well, they never did come back. Folks say the water feels wrong, like it pulls at your very soul. That podcast Calvin was on, the episode never aired. The host don't even remember recording it. Only one thing remains. His last words, pulled from some old backup server, they're not visitors. They're not explorers. They're collectors. And we're all part of the collection. If you stand at the pier at night and close your eyes, some say you'll hear it. A hum rising up from beneath that black water, and your own name whispered back to you. The things that walk at night? Well, this story's based on the life and encounters of Virginia Louise Swainson. Folks around here called her Granny Bigfoot. And honestly, Virginia didn't mind one bit. At 77, she'd spent more time in these mountains than most rangers half her age, I reckon. Her cluttered Julian cabin, lined with cast-iron pans, survival maps, and all sorts of typewritten notes, was legendary among locals. She didn't just believe in Bigfoot. No, sir, she knew it was real. Back in 1953, she said one visited her camp near Big Sur. Didn't touch her, but she could smell it before she saw it. A hot, bloody stink, kind of like a slaughterhouse at noon. She'd slept with a saw under her pillow ever since, just in case. In the decades that followed, Virginia found footprints, heard screams, and kept track of vanishing livestock in the Julian backcountry. Other researchers ignored her and locals just shrugged her off, but she kept hunting, taking notes, and waiting. Part 2, A Scream in the Pines. In December of 2024, hikers out in the Cleveland National Forest reported seeing a hairy, upright figure darting across the trail near Winola. They heard something screaming, not quite animal, not quite human, you know. The San Diego Sentinel called Virginia for comment, and she just laughed on the phone and said, "They're moving again. They always do before winter comes." When asked what she meant, her voice got real low and she said, "They're not hibernating, they're gathering." That same week, her neighbor, John Lutman, went missing. He was last seen heading toward Warner Trail to set up some trail cameras. His truck was found 2 days later, engine still running. The passenger door was ripped off its hinges. Part 3, The Tunnel. Virginia led the search party herself, saying John had found something big, and that's why he was taken. She brought along her old plaster castings, maps of sound recordings, and even a small Geiger counter. By the third day, they found prints, 13 inches long, 6 inches wide, leading into a box canyon, but those tracks ended at a rock face. That's when Virginia spotted it, a narrow fissure, almost hidden behind moss and roots. Inside, the air reeked of rot and mushrooms. She said they shouldn't go in. The others did anyway. Only one man came out, rambling about tunnels lined with fur and a voice that whispered through the stone, "Don't look at its eyes." He never spoke again. After the incident, Virginia went quiet. She stopped answering calls, stopped leading hikes. Her cabin shutters stayed closed, even in daylight. In January, a researcher named Craig Reiser visited her. He claimed to be part of a documentary team filming a series on American cryptid legends. He stayed overnight. In the morning, he was gone, but Virginia's cabin was open, and everything inside was burned. Only one thing survived, a metal lockbox hidden beneath the floorboards. Inside were notes. Sketches of multiple creatures, some thin and bony, others massive and hunched. Descriptions of strange smells, mimicry, and evidence of underground movement. Reports of missing hikers dating back to 1948. One page simply read, "They are not one thing, they are many, and they live in the old places." Locals began reporting something new in February. A woman was seen walking the trails at dusk, white-haired, dressed in Virginia's trademark red hiking vest, but she didn't wave, didn't blink, and her feet were bare. A ranger spotted her and called out. She turned, but her face was wrong, like melted wax. The ranger fired a shot. The figure vanished behind a ridge. When they searched the area, they found a half-eaten coyote and Virginia's necklace hanging from a tree. But Virginia had not been seen in over 2 weeks. 3 hikers disappeared in March. A family dog was found clawed apart on the porch. Its owner swore he heard it barking at something that sounded like his wife's voice, even though she was out of town. Game cams near Warner Trail began capturing faint outlines as if something massive was just out of frame. The screams came back, long, low, human-like. Always. At 2:13 a.m., the surviving search party member from the tunnel incident finally spoke one sentence before passing away in a care home. There's a hole under the mountain, and they're crawling out. In April, a researcher from the Bay Area Cryptid Group received an envelope postmarked from Julian. It contained one last journal page, handwritten by Virginia in shaky pencil. They watched me for years. I thought I was tracking them, but they were always just behind me. The howls are communication, not fear, not hunger. They're calling each other. We made the mistake of listening. But the real mistake was replying, and on the back she wrote, "They wear us like masks." To this day, no one knows what happened to Virginia Louise Swainson, but hikers still see her on the trail. She waves sometimes. She never speaks. But her eyes are wrong. Too dark, too still, too knowing. Lexington, Kentucky. A prank gone wrong may have led to the chilling disappearance of a local boy near the Raven Hill subdivision early Wednesday morning, in what residents are already whispering about as a possible sighting of the legendary creature known as Bigfoot. Authorities say 12-year-old Anthony Tony Meyers has not been seen since about 7:35 in the morning, when he and 5 other Lexington middle school students entered a wooded ravine near Raven Hill Court. The students had missed their school bus and reportedly followed Tony on what he claimed was a shortcut to school. According to multiple eyewitnesses, some too shaken to speak at length, the children detoured across a privately owned field and discovered a sinkhole partially obscured by tall grass. Tony was the first to descend into the hole, reportedly calling out moments later that he had found a cave. What happened next has sparked fear and confusion throughout the Raven Hill community. Tony thought it was funny. He was pretending to be hurt earlier that morning. Folks thought this was another joke, but it wasn't. Barnes told authorities that after several students followed Tony into the cave, they began to notice movement deeper within the cavern, movement that didn't belong to any of them. There were shapes in the dark, big ones. At first she thought it was Tony, but he answered from the opposite direction. And then, they saw them. Tall, hunched, hairy. Panicked, the children scrambled to exit the narrow passage. Crystal and 2 boys, Fred and Stevie, managed to escape. Tony wasn't so lucky. He was almost out. They saw him crawling through. Then something grabbed his legs. The children say Tony screamed as he was pulled back into the cave. His hands reportedly clawed at the grass before disappearing from sight. When the children returned to the scene with school staff only 30 minutes later, the sinkhole was gone, covered entirely by smooth, undisturbed grass. No sign of Tony, no sign of the cave. The sudden disappearance has rattled Raven Hill residents, many of whom say the wooded ravine has long had a reputation for strange occurrences. Folks have heard howls at night, low and deep, not coyotes. Some always said there was something in those woods. Now they know it. Others claim sightings of a tall, shadowy figure lurking near tree lines, often described as smelling like rot and wet fur. Local police say they are treating the disappearance as a missing persons case. When asked about the cave and alleged creature, Lexington Police Chief Andre Vega responded cautiously. He said, "We're reviewing all statements. We found no sinkhole, no cave, and no evidence of foul play at the location. That said, we are not dismissing the possibility that the terrain shifted naturally after the recent rains." Privately, one volunteer searcher told the Gazette the ground near the reported site felt strange, almost hollow. As the community prepares for Halloween weekend, some parents are calling for temporary closure of the trails near Raven Hill. One parent said, This isn't just about Tony, there's something in those woods, and I don't want my daughter walking past it every morning. Several children who witnessed the event are undergoing trauma counseling. The legend of Bigfoot has circulated in Kentucky for decades, particularly in the eastern counties. However, this is the first documented incident involving a potential sighting, a sinkhole, and a missing child. Lexington Middle School Principal Rick Forrester released a statement urging calm, saying, "We are cooperating fully with authorities. Our hearts go out to Tony's family, and we are doing everything we can to support our students. Still, the fear is growing. Local lore now speaks not just of Bigfoot, but of multiple creatures living underground, hiding among limestone caverns that snake beneath the bluegrass region." Late last night, a new message appeared spray-painted near the bottom of Ravenhill Court. "The woods took him. Don't go back."